Greetings and welcome to this session that will reach and open a brand new subject area for everybody, because we will not be talking about technology, we will not be talking about implementation. We will be going new school and talking about, we've been spending 20 years gathering data, so let's talk about how we analyze it. Yeah. Holy smoke, that's something new. It's like, what? It's not a techie presentation, so if you came here for the tech, lean back and enjoy. You're not going to see anything. Also been told that there's lunch after this. I don't care. It's not my problem. I will talk until I'm finished. So you will not be first at the buffet unless you heckle me aggressively. So if my microphone breaks out, then I will try to freestyle it. So I came up with this Audi Framework, and this is basically based on a question I've been having and a conversation I've been having with a lot of people for a long time, saying, when you got your job, when you go to customers, do you promise them data, or do you promise to come up with insights, recommendations, and actions? Because in 95% of the cases when I talk to the bosses and the clients, and on the client side, what they are expecting is insights, recommendations, and actions. Data is just the basic. It's what we need to deliver insights, recommendations, and actions. But normally we focus so much on gathering the data that we kind of forget that's really the point of the job. So to kind of nudge in that direction, I'm going to talk to you about the Audi Framework. It's a mental thing, but you will hopefully be able to utilize it to get starting in relations to doing some actual analytics. Ooh. So, and to get started with a subject like this is a pretty basic, classic question. How do you eat an elephant? So, most people know the answer to this one. The ones that don't, it's like, I can see you're saying, well, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at the time. And that's kind of the same thing, the same problem we have with starting analyzing the data is that we have too much data, so we try to analyze everything at once, and then we fail. So what we basically need to do is kind of reverse our thinking and start breaking our data into bite-sized chunks that make sense for analysis. So kind of flipping it, and instead of going broad and saying, yes, we've been gathering all the data in all the world for 20 years, but we cannot analyze all that data. So we need to go in and focus on some of it to actually deliver some sort of value. So today, hopefully you're gonna learn how to eat an analytics elephant. Good. I'm Steen, senior partner, co-founder at an agency based out of Copenhagen called Nordic. Co-founded the agency back in 2005. That makes me old, experienced. You pick the wise. Okay, I like wise. So the interesting thing about this is that my background is originally in corporate communication, so I'm not technical in that sense, but I'm commercial. And that's why I go in and try to kind of rethink things and say, so show me the money, what's the business case, what is the actual value in this, instead of just talking about how do we get more data. I'm also the father of 4-ish people, and I use that in Finland as a kind of icebreaker, because I know sometimes with Finnish people you need to give them an occasion to come and talk to you. So I'm not going to tell you why. If you want the answer to that, then you have to come and nudge me. So this presentation is my traveling presentation that I'm doing at Measurecamp. This is why it says almost not beta. This is the third time I'm doing it. I did it in Measurecamp Malmö. I did an online version to kind of prep this. Then I'm doing it here, and then I'm doing it wherever I go. And every time I do it, based on your input and feedback and stuff, and saying, Steen, slide 17 sucked, or that was amazing, go deeper into that, then I will change the presentation for the next Measurecamp. So if you have something that you like or dislike, come to me afterwards and tell me, because you will be helping future members of my audience having an even more amazing experience than you're having. Yay. Now, the first thing about when we think about analytics is saying it's really not magic. it's really just about a process. And I think the challenge is that often when I have the discussion between implementation and analysis, we're in a situation where implementation is binary. Either it works or it doesn't. Right? So we have a really clear-cut example of saying, okay, I am getting the data that I plan to get. Yeah, I can enrich it, I can do certain stuff, but I can see that. So it's really clear. Analysis is not binary, it's a pain in the ass. So in the sense that you will have to go in and interpret the data, and then it will be a mix of your worldview in relation to what is going on. And unlike implementations, there's not a lot of documentations in relations to methodology of analyzing this data, right? So we're kind of in a situation that what they're paying us to do is not what we really can do because everybody else is just doing implementations. So let's go and talk about it. When I talk to people about doing analysis on website, I say there's basically 4 directions that we can tackle when we look at our analytics data. Because our analytics data talks about and provides insight into 4 different dimensions of the business. So the classic dimension that we normally think about when we talk about analyzing analytics data is that we talk about the bottom one, the interactions. It's what happens on the website, how do people interact with the website. And will be the focus of my session today. Just saying that there's also the other dimensions that we could put into it. There's a technical dimension that basically relates to how is the website working. That will impact the interaction. If the website is down, we will have no users. If the website is slow, it will impact the experience. So that is kind of there's a technical dimension. There's the user dimension in relation to what are properties about the user that are about to do something. Classic example, I saw a guy from Aston Martin doing a presentation about their analytics. He said there's nobody on their website that is going to buy a car. Right? So it's a website for dreams where we come in early in the process when we're poor, and then we go to the Aston Martin website, and then we'll look at the cars and say, I want one of those one day. So they don't expect to sell anything. So the audience for them is saying it's fine that they're not buying anything because the audience is supposed to supporting the dream and not buying the car because then you would go to the dealership and so on, right? So properties about the users. It can also be saying that, yeah, we'll talk a lot more about the users in some sense, but classic thing is saying we cannot convert the unconvertibles. Sometimes we will have the wrong users in the funnel in relation to what we want them to do. And that will be a major problem, and that's not something we can improve with conversion rate optimization because it's the wrong user we attract, and no matter how much we pimp the site, we will not enable them to do anything or do the thing we want. And then finally, there's the entire market situation. Classic problem saying, you're sitting looking at your data, somebody comes running, listen, our conversion rate has been halved. And as an analyst, what we do is we dive into the data and we try to solve the answer, saying what happened, why did our conversion rate break, right? It's kind of everyday job problem. So we dive into the data, we analyze it, we cannot really see what the problem is. And in most cases, the reason why our conversion rate breaks is because the competition is doing something. Suddenly they're running a campaign against our classic best-selling product. And the only thing that we can see in our data is that the sales drops. So the first place we need to look is actually outside our website and saying, has something happened in the marketplace? So before we start diving into our own bucket of data, then we look around the bucket saying, okay, has something happened there? But this is the market. This is something that we can also talk about. This is something that has immense value for a lot of the organization, but it's an area that we don't necessarily focus on. So all these things are stuff that we can bring to the table and actually tell people in an analysis. But let's focus on the core basic thing that is where we are now, saying that it's about the website, it's about the marketing and the business. Now, I will be presenting a rough method. Like anything analytics, nothing will be perfect for your business. It's an inspiration to enable you to do a framework that will match your business. You will have different setups. where you require different things in relations to make this work, right? So there's no stress as such. Don't expect this to be the perfect fit, but hopefully enough to give you something to work with, especially at the end where I will actually try to come up with some level of method. Good. So, how many people know how many users they have on their website? Okay, doesn't have to be specific. You have a rough idea about the number of users, but the problem with knowing the number of users is that it's really arbitrary. It doesn't matter. Because what you're interested in is saying, what segments of users do I have? So how many potential customers do I have? How many existing customers do I have? How many job candidates? And breaking it down, because all these different segments, the thing that they do not share is the objective for being on the website, right? So if we go in and try to put all these people in a bucket and say, okay, how many bought something? The number's gonna suck because only a minor group of these are actual potential customers, right? So it's not until we actually go in and reflect on, can we break down our visitors on the website in segments so we can put them in buckets, so we can say, okay, how many of the job candidates applied for a job? How many of the existing employees read the vision material for our business, right? And of course, because it's not a key point that the existing employees go and buy something on the website when they visit it. It's nice if they do, of course, but it's not the reason that we send them there. Does that make sense? So a lot of the traffic, the majority of the traffic is actually always redundant in relations to the given segments. But when we look at analytics, when we set it up, we kind of have some like an overall conversion point. We have some few overall conversion points, but even if we talk about marketing, we will have different objectives for our campaigns. So we will have a churn prevention campaign, a branding campaign, like a specific product campaign, or an upselling campaign. So all these things are actually also something that is broken down in relations to the reasons why people are on the site, or why we bring them to the site. So it's just saying that we need to be much more granular in our understanding of the website if we want to be able to analyze it, right? Measurement plans. This is kind of a really old school. It's like measurement plans is the basic of any website, but you need technically you need a measurement plan for each of the segments, saying why do we have this segment? What is it that we want them to do on the website, and what are we doing to improve it? Right? Because that gives you a direction in relations to what does the success look like in relation to this specific group. Right? So it gives us another way of understanding the segments and breaking it down. And it simplifies the world amazingly because it gives us the baseline saying that the who and the what. So if we go in and say, yes, we could look at all users and all events, which we normally do, but by separating them, we can actually go and look at only the users that are relevant in relation to some events. And just by having this simple separation, then suddenly we almost at once have a much smaller data set to look at to be able to analyze what is going on, right? So it's not everything to everybody, because we can't be that, but what are we trying to be in relations to specific groups? Cool. Then we can go into more detail. We can add something called true conversion points. Saying now we know we have existing customers, we have them on the website. We did a great job a long time ago for Telia, where we helped them run a campaign in relation to getting more people to sign up for broadband. Sounds like a super thing. We were operating based on the conversion rate on the site until a year and a half into the relationship, somebody from Telia said, well, guys, do you know that it's actually not the conversion? The conversion, people haven't bought until they install it at home. Because what happens when they fill out the form is we send them a box with the router and the conditions, but it's not until they actually plug it in at home that the contract starts. So suddenly we had to move the conversion point and start tracking at that point and saying, okay, of the people who came to the website and signed up, how many actually implemented? went the full way and found out that a lot of the channels that we had been recommending in the beginning were actually really bad at closing the deal. Right? So you got a high level of people that were not actually converting, they were only first level converters. So by understanding the sales process, saying when has the sale actually happened? That's the true conversion point. When did it actually happen? It's the same as saying, sure, we running a churn prevention campaign, somebody comes in and fills out a form, and then we're like, yay, they didn't churn, but maybe they churned anyway. We actually don't know until a month later to see, are they still here? Right? So understanding the processes beyond the data and looking at why customers and how customers buy becomes immensely important. And it might mean that we have to go into analytics and redefine our channels. Right now, most people, if they used standard setups like Google Analytics setup, we think there's only these channels that Google has defined. Well, that's from 9 out of 10 organizations, the standard channels are wrong. You might have partners providing traffic. You might have internal things providing traffic. You might have in-store campaigns or off-site campaigns or QR codes providing traffic. That doesn't fit into the Google universe. The channels that we are used to working with are the channels that make Google look good. Right? It's kind of the basic. It was built back in the days when Google was wanting to sell more AdWords. So that's kind of the modeling. So that was the separation. When they also added display and other stuff, then we also got able to track that. But if we look at it from an organization perspective, it might be that we need to redefine some of this because Google's worldview in relation to channel doesn't match our business. Right? Good. And some companies will need this. This is a proverbial pain. The ID resolution. How can we know that the same one user is the same user? Some of us will have short processes where we don't need to know that people are coming back. But if we're looking at stuff like customer lifetime, or we want to see people over time, we have subscriptions, then we want to track it a different way. I was talking to a customer the other day. They said, okay, every time a customer changed their subscription package, they were registered as a new customer. So if I had like a monthly subscription, I said, no guys, I love you, I'm going to do 6-month prepaid, then it got registered as a new customer. So they didn't have the customer lifetime, they only had the individual subscription lifetimes. And that's kind of really difficult to do anything strategic about because you don't have the right granularity in that you need in relations to understand how your customers engage with your business. And it's really a lot about this saying, we need to focus on how can we enable people to buy? How can we enable people to be happy customers? And that's part of our job description. So we did this case a couple of years back with a credit card company. They wanted to, in relation to that, test the messaging, right? So they had like, okay, we want to bring people in. We want to find out of the credit cards we provide, how do people use them best? And it sounds like it because most credit card companies actually don't want you just to get a credit card and max it out because it's not the long-term best business model for them. They want you to control the card and use it once in a while and always owe them a little money, but not too much, because then you're not going to get pressured and try to cancel everything and clean your economy. That's but just business 101 for credit cards, right? So what they did, they went out and they said, okay, cool, we're going to launch 3 campaigns at the same time. One is saying, okay, there's a high fee to get the card, and then there's a low fee later on. There's a no fee to set up, and a middle fee, and a middle fee. And then they were running these campaigns at the same time, and basically they were not interested in what we're normally interested in, saying they were not interested in the customers, they were interested in the behavior of the customers. So we didn't actually analyze the campaign until 6 months later, when we went in and we looked at, okay, of all these customers they got through these campaigns, who were using the card the right way? And then looking backward from there and saying, okay, what messages had triggered them to begin with? This is stuff we can do with analytics if we want to. But we just have to think about saying this is actually an answer that can be really valuable to the organization. But it's just rethinking what analysis is. So, you've been waiting for it, the Audi Framework. And it actually, sadly, has marginally little to do with Audi, except that I'm trying to place a mental anchor with you guys. Because when you look at it, you can see 4 circles. And this could be one of the circles. And why it's Audi, it's just to remind you every time you see an Audi that you will hopefully think, I have to do some analysis as well. Good. So the idea here is saying that one of the problems we have when we do analysis is that we think we can do it on a monthly basis. And what we basically need is we need some sort of process where we go in and we go in and we define a baseline, then we gather some data, and then we come with some recommendations. Then that gets implemented, and then we gather some more data so we can do another analysis. And very often we mess this up because we think, okay, I can do this on a monthly basis. We've had this deal with customers going in and trying to do analysis for customers on the monthly basis, and they've been like, yeah, but a month later when we're supposed to come up with the next recommendations, they still haven't implemented the stuff we recommended a month ago. So the analysis we would come out with would be exactly the same, the one they got the month ago, right? And this is why we have this wheel saying, okay, we need to do a baseline, give time for coming up with recommendations, give time for them to implement it, and give time to gather the data so we can actually evaluate if it worked or not, right? Because that's actually a really important part of the analysis that we can bring to the table. It's that it's not ad hoc, but it's actually a lot of these wheels running over time. So I know technically we cannot travel back in time, just to show giving you the Audi model, right? Can you recognize now the Audi thing? Good. Otherwise, yeah, we'll leave that. But the idea is then you go in and you define what are the wheels that you want to look at. Right? What is it that makes sense for your business? Is it landing pages? Is it purchase processes? Is it the checkout flow for a given segment? So you go in and you say, cool, I evaluate my paid traffic, and then I give them time to change it. I give them time to implement it, and look at the data again so I can see if it changed anything. Right? So and then suddenly it becomes really simple because we have this process. I'm not trying to analyze everything every month all the time. I'm saying, cool, I do paid media 1 month. The month after, I will do owned media. And the month after, I will do earned media. And then I'll do the website. I might do landing pages. But it means that they get time to implement the changes. And it gives us time to gather data so we can actually do the analysis. Right? So slow processes, but continuously, because this is actually where we can provide the most value of everything, by having continuous improvement in relations to the activity that's going on. So ad hoc analysis is wonderful, but it doesn't really help. It doesn't support the long-term growth. It's most situational. But this is actually something where we continuously help build the business. Of course, your wheels might look like this. So you would have something with a very short cycle. The paid media team can really quickly go in and do changes. The SEO team will wait for changes because it might take a longer time for those things to come in. If you say, cool, I want you to reprogram the landing pages on this sub-page 17, where we have 15 people arriving every month, the cycle might be really long, right? But just having this thing in relation to saying that we need, for recommendation to have value, we also need to be able to evaluate it. So having this thing in relation to just continuous thinking about the evaluation. So an example, SEO. Now, when it comes to SEO, right? Then what we normally see, everybody, if you go and look and do a report on SEO on your website, you will look at how much traffic came from the search engine, right? That's actually perfect, except that you need to segment it. Because the traffic you have on your website that comes from SEO, you have 2 different types of pages. You have the planned pages, which is the pages that the SEO team has actually worked on. And then you have another part of your traffic, which is the natural SEO, where people are just coming anyway. Right? So you kind of have something you're paying for, and you're something that happens for itself. And right now, we're just putting that into one bucket. So we need to know what are the pages that has been optimized because they need input in relations to how can they improve those pages. We need to understand what traffic is coming from the paid effort in relation to how much traffic would be coming anyway. Right? So, and it's not a distinction we do because we just used to looking at the aggregated number, but in reality, the aggregated number can be broken down. And the same thing when we look at the page, if you do a search engine optimization, well, you are trying to attract a specific audience, right? So you're running a campaign, you're search engine optimizing a product page, and then you say, okay, oh my God, 100,000 people came in. And when you try to break it down, saying that's fine, but if I look at my segments, these are all students that are looking for a job, it's not potential customers. So we actually failed because we didn't hit the segment that we were actually aiming for. Right? And for the search engine optimization team, this is bad news because they've been used to just getting the high numbers, but it will make it much more operational for them to actually go in and focus on the right segment and saying, okay, cool, what would I rather have 100,000 of the wrong people coming in or 10,000 of the right people saying, so it's not a numbers game, it's actually a quality game. Okay, when it comes to recommendations, we don't have to make it that complicated. We can break it down into 4 levels, saying, okay, a page is fine. We just keep it as it is. So it's basically these 4 things you can see here. Ignore maintain. We just keep it as it is. Okay, we're spending way too much time search engine optimization. This page, we should reduce the effort here because we're not getting it. This page actually is working really well. We need to push that even harder. Or maybe we have a natural page that is bringing in a lot of traffic that we can transform to an effort page. Or we have an effort page, we can say, okay, cool, we're going to transform that to a non-effort page. We're not going to do any more here because this is not what we wanted on this page. Or we say, okay, we're getting all these students in, they're looking for jobs, so we transform the page and put a link in there focusing on jobs instead of focusing on buying. Right? This is what we can do if we tackle the data in this way. Right? And it's suddenly much more operational and much more interesting for everybody. And the same thing, same process with the planned versus natural landing pages. We have people landing on our landing pages. Some of them we have planned. Some of them we haven't. How are they working? We can break it down saying, is this the segment that we wanted to come here? Or isn't it? And then, again, breaking it down to the categories. So I originally had a long slide about this single, but not to kill you. Actually, there's an online version of this presentation if you want to see it at a later time, talking about this single slide, 25 minutes. So enjoy. This is how you bump your numbers in the Good. So, and there are things that we then need to take into account. This is just another factor saying analytics has a really big problem. It has the problem that if nobody comes, we won't have any data. So we have a lot of ghost pages on our website, right? And we will never see them in analytics. There's the 0-page page views. And I just did an analysis for a customer, and I think it was like 15% of their pages was 0-page view pages. So we're going into analytics and looking at what are the least seen pages. Yeah, then there was a group that wasn't there with the zeros that can actually, then we have to do an extra crawl or compare it to a website crawl in relation to URLs and then do a benchmark. But it's an interesting group in bringing to the attention because it might be saying, okay, we have SEO working on these pages and nobody's coming. And we can't even see them when we just look in the regular analytics. So this is just saying there's other things out there that is really interesting to look at. So I hope you got an idea saying this is not one size fits all. It's some reflection in relation to you to tackle this. And I hope it's been an inspiration because there's 7 steps to get started. And it's just to keep it simple, right? So going in and say, don't try to do everything. Start by going into your segments and then start by looking at what is my easiest definable segment I have in my data. Can I clearly see something? A lot of websites, and this is kind of a recommendation from my side, putting things on your website that is where people self-segment. Classic thing, a job section. People who go to the job section normally look for a job, right? It's like people who log in are existing customers. We might have, so going in and what type of self-segmentations are there in our data, or should we change something on our website so we enable people to self-segment, so we understand what group do they belong to, so we can do this analysis in relation to them, right? But find the one group you have already in your data that is available, start with them. Focus on one what is it that, okay, this segment, what is it that we want them to do? And then focus again on a channel or a landing page or on the site, whatever, and then do that analysis. And then just define that as a benchmark. And then say, okay, cool, if this is the benchmark, what do I think we should do to improve that? And that's where the pain comes, right? Because you actually have to come up with some idea of saying, how can we improve this? Because that answer will not be in analytics, right? And that's where it's tough being a proactive analyst that actually does this data-driven business development, which technically we will be doing if we're coming up with the improvements. So, and that's the hard part. But then, yeah, run the wheel, wait for some time, come up with the recommendation, see the changes, and do it again. And if the model works, or not if the model works, think how you need to change this model to work for you again, and then add the next reel, and the next reel, and the next reel over time, because this is where you can deliver insane business value to the organizations that you're working for. Right? So, this is my call to action slide. I have way too many calls to actions. If you love it, fine. I'm doing a cohort on Maven where we're talking about building an urgency mindset. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I have a newsletter like everybody else. So if this is a dose of nerddom that was inspirational, I actually only went slightly over time. So I hope you have enjoyed it. Thank you. And remember, I'm a father of four-ish.